All right, so we're here, James.
We are. We're live.
Well, welcome to Jab Sessions. My name is Bob Thuring,
James Johnson.
and we've created this as a little broadcast to kind of introduce some things related to the technology industry and how they work and coincide with the accounting industry. James is a CPA.
That's right.
And he has a company.
Right, J.H. Johnson and Associates. I'm a partner here, and that's actually where we're sitting right now. So this may be an issue. You may hear accounting sounds from time to time, which I don't know what that would be. Maybe
Sure.
a printer or a tape register or something.
Right.
But yeah, you'll hear them from time to time.
Great. And again, my name is Bob Thuring, and I own a company called Tandem Innovations. We're a training technology company. We've been in business since 2005, especially focusing on computer technology, business networks. Good majority of our customers are people who have IT and technology needs, but maybe don't have their own IT staff, or maybe need some assistance related to technology and IT, looking for any ways to help them in their businesses, especially related to computer systems. Business networks, for example, whether it be computer sales, computer training, anything related to that. And we're based out of Huntington, West Virginia. And of course, James, we're down here in the
we're in the Bluegrass State. We're in Russell.
State.
Yeah, we're in Russell, Kentucky, and that's where we're located. Here, our office, once again, jhjcpa.com. We're kind of a weird hybrid. I don't know what we are. We're definitely not a brick and mortar CPA firm. You're not going to be able to walk in and catch me just hanging out ready to do a tax return, unfortunately. But what you can do is you can go online, email me, or catch me on a podcast, and hopefully I can help you out through those methods. We have several virtual clients which have never been to our office, and I love that about us. And we cover a broad range of products from tax completion all the way through audit report writing. I call us a full-service firm. Obviously, there are some limitations to that depending on the size of your business, but in general, we work with small businesses and we work with not-for-profits. We work with governmental entities and special taxing entities of that nature. So tons of good stuff in there that we do regarding the profession.
Sure, and James, we met in a business network environment, a group that meets called BNI, which is a group that meets to help each other grow each other's businesses and such. And you obviously were interested in what I did because you're a very technology-based accounting firm.
Right. Well, the comment I made earlier before we started is that IT ran through accounting. It was accountants that kind of had that idea of, wow, we have a lot of data. What if we stopped keeping it in paper ledgers and moved it into these big, humongous boxes in a room somewhere? And I think that was a fantastic move by whoever did it. And but through virtue of that, I feel like accounting is one of those industries that just profits so much from what you guys do. And you look at, you don't hear right now, you don't hear the term cloud engineering, do you?
That's very true.
I mean, maybe you do, but I hear the term cloud accounting all the time. So I'd like to think that accountants and CPAs by nature are a little bit on the front of technology. So by you doing this podcast with me, I'm going to be helping you, or you're going to be helping me, and hopefully vice versa, that you can kind of see from an end user what we're doing out here. You can help yourself and your clients.
I agree, and one of the things that we focus on, especially in that networking group, is business by referral, which is a way of helping each other's business. And one of the key referral sources, and we service a lot of accounting firms, because there is a lot of accounting firms, not going to include you on this, that are not technology savvy at all.
There's stuff we can do better, and I think that's probably the biggest problem that you're going to run into with accounting firms, is they'll be offended by that comment. If you run in and say, you can't just go in and start throwing your hands up saying, what are you guys doing?
Correct.
Every CPA firm likes to think, well, every person, I think, likes to think that they're at least knowledgeable enough to conduct business in an efficient and effective manner. When in reality, you've got a lot of guys out there that are just, they're failing to conduct business in an efficient and effective manner. And I'm afraid that the moment that we think that we are will be the moment that we look at Bob and say, well, we don't need guys like Bob anymore. And then, here comes some younger guy that just takes the industry by storm and the area by storm, and
That shot at my age, younger guys.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, who knows? I feel like I can say that now because I am a little bit younger than most CPAs.
Sure.
But, I can't say that forever. But, yeah, I think that's probably one of the big problems is that guys in my industry look at it and say, I know everything I need to know about computers. They put in what's the equivalent of a home network, which how secure is that for as detailed of data as we handle, social security numbers, those sorts of things. I mean, not every CPA spends their morning doing podcasts. Some of them are doing taxes,
sure,
which require obviously a high level of detail about people's personal information, and that's got to be kept safe. But
sure.
Anyway, I digress.
Well, that makes sense, and I guess one of the things we want to do here is we need input, obviously, from people that are watching and or listening, and they're looking for what are our expectations out of this podcast? Why are we doing it? And we mentioned the book Start With Why.
Right.
We talked about that, and that was kind of I don't want to say the focus, but the central idea of why we decided to start this is, and maybe I'll give you some of my whys, and maybe you give me some of your whys. Number one, it gives us an opportunity to get ourselves out there just outside of the geographic region that we're working.
Right, and that's a huge why. When I think of reach, or I think of platform, there's this term when you hear speakers, they're always talking about their platform. What platform are they on? And I think that it can only benefit you and I if we expand our platform to a national platform versus a regional platform.
Yes, and I believe we'll also run into situations where we have unique challenges in this area. We're kind of in a somewhat rural area. It's a hard word for me to say.
It is a hard word for me to say, too.
So we'll try to bypass that in the future. And we do have bandwidth challenges. Of course, people may not even know what that means around here a lot of times. So we have some things that we run into. But the funny thing is when
you say bandwidth challenges because our actual Google Plus that we're using right now is like a minute or two behind, and as I'm doing my hands like this, they're not moving on. Oh, there they are.
Yes,
okay.
They're responding a little bit
Sorry.
slowly, but that's okay.
Totally had nothing to do with accounting.
So, but it does have to do with technology.
And I'm going to bet a huge portion of people are actually going to hear this on podcasts. They're not going to be in the actual. In fact, this is our first. Why would you be in the Google Hangout? Why are we doing a Google Hangout? Well, that's because very often we'll be in different locations, and we want to get the technology down before we do that. But a lot of people are listening to it on podcasts, and they're like, "Well, what's he talking about? Move his hand." Just take our word for it. Our bandwidth sucks. My hands are slow. Move on.
Exactly. And if we're going to have people have those challenges too, which brings in a whole other question about cloud computing. We'll talk about that later. We're talking about just different devices, Wi-Fi, the differences, and in this day and age, your wireless carrier, whether your wireless phone carrier.
Right. We love to hate them.
Those are becoming critical parts, and I guess this has to do with why I'm so interested in this podcast is we have to trust and rely on all these other external companies that are our partners, whether we want them to be or not, whether it be a wireless carrier, a wireless provider, an internet provider.
But I want to be clear about something. Although you're relying on all these outside carriers, I'm going to blame you.
Okay.
Because you're the face of them.
Yes.
And so, and I guarantee every accountant you deal with walks in and says, Bob, why is my internet down?
Yes.
And I don't care. I mean, I'm sure that Hurricane Katrina had a slew of IT guys that got fired as a byproduct. I don't want to make light of a horrible situation.
I understand.
But, it's one of those things where you're the first guy that everyone jumps onto.
Yes.
And it's a huge point of communication for you because, and I know you do a good job of this, but the general feel of the industry is that, it's always IT's fault. The second the internet goes down, it's IT's fault. The second that the telephones don't work, it's IT's fault. The second my computer doesn't start up, it's IT's fault. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing, downloaded a virus, and crashed the server. Well, Bob?
Right. Yes.
So,
and that's one of the things that we really try to train when we're educating people is accountability. Ties into accounting, obviously.
So let's roll into the why.
Sure.
One of the big whys is why you're doing that podcast is what you just said.
Yes, exactly. To an education standpoint.
Right.
We want to get word out for people and help people because our audiences are going to be anywhere from my existing customers now to, all nationwide and worldwide. You never know who. There's bound to be people running into these same kind of problems.
So some guy sitting in an apartment in L.A. and he just happens to stumble on our podcast and you help him out with his problem. I'm pretty sure you're okay with that, right?
Exactly.
That's part of the reason we're doing this is to help, just to help people.
and correct me if I'm wrong, our two industries, and maybe legal would go in this as well, are often criticized for secrecy, holding back information.
Yeah, well,
because I don't know a lot about the accounting world. A lot of times I'm at the mercy of
Well, you know what, you read in the headline. You know,
Sure.
and how many times in a headline do you have accounting fraud? Do you have financial theft? Do you have all these different things that are gracing the New York Times? And we're still not over Arthur Andersen in 2002. That's 9 years ago. You know, that's not 9 years ago. Jeez,
12 years
that's
ago.
12 years ago.
Trustworthy accountant here.
Oh my gosh, who can't keep track of time? You know, yeah. Wow. Okay, it's been that long since all that occurred.
Sure.
And our industry is still fighting to maintain our respect from the public for all that.
It makes sense. And ours does the same thing. You know, our industry, we fight the slew of experts that are out there.
Right, your hobbyists and your enthusiasts.
Yes.
That's one thing that I do appreciate about accounting that that your profession sucks at is weeding out the enthusiasts and the hobbyists. Which I'm all for. If a hobbyist wants to gain expertise and move into and make the sacrifice to be in your profession, I'm all for that. In accounting, we call that taking the CPA exam.
Sure.
In IT, I don't know that you guys do things like that. You know.
That's very true. That's a very good point. Yeah, and it's I don't want to say not a very heavy regulated industry, but more of a heavy certification-based industry. There's plenty of IT certifications, but I'll ask you this. You know IT very well.
I'm learning.
You're above average when it comes to that. But
okay.
Let's just say you needed a technology company to come in here. I walk in here. What certifications am I going to say? You're going to say, okay, I trust them. I don't know that there is one.
Right. There will be no certification because I hire off of referral. If I'm going to hire a contractor for anything, I'm going to say list your top 3 people. Let me call them and see what you've done for them. And I tend to be very specific in what I look for in an IT guy, and that I may come in and say I'm looking to move to a cloud infrastructure and where I want to house my social security number and super secret encrypted documents in this manner. Can you set that up? You know, those sorts of things. And I may approach it as saying, give me an overall plan. Here are my documents. You know, and if I don't know to ask for that, then you may have a hobbyist come in and say, hey, I can hook your computer in and then just plug it into the Ethernet, totally wide open Wi-Fi.
Right.
And I've walked into accounting offices like that. I've worked in accounting offices like that temporarily, not very long, but that they didn't have that regard for the secrecy of their clients, you know, and that could happen to a lot of other CPAs.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's a lot that are probably in this boat. And if you're listening to this podcast, shame on you.
That's right.
And call Bob.
Well, and the thing about it is, our industry, getting back to that, is we have to deal with, okay, we used to be the technology company, fixed the computer systems, set up the new computer systems, and made them work. And, and when there was a problem, that's kind of gone away too. There's not a lot of upgrading these days because devices, devices this day and age are, I hate to say it, virtually throwaway. Once it's done, it's done.
Yeah, right.
So what we run into now, and this is one of the big whys for me of why I like you as part of this, we now are running into situations where it really comes down to that word data. Because information is out there. It's no longer the equipment. The equipment certainly is important. The equipment certainly is a factor. However, what we're running into is, and you've done this with me before, I know a pretty good amount about IT. Obviously, the cloud is kind of a mystery at times, but you clue me into situations of, hey, do you realize, Bob, if someone stores this bit of information, and let's say they use a third-party company that hosts cloud stuff, and they are in Singapore, Bob, you've just violated several accounts.
And IRS, you're talking about violating Internal Revenue. And I can be very certain in saying there's few people who are triangulating state law, federal law, Internal Revenue Code with cloud computing. You know, they're doing what's handy, they're doing what's easy, they're not researching, they're not doing their homework, and that's what we're kind of left with.
And I think those are some things that we can help people with. And we obviously can field questions from people to get more specific topics. We have a slew of ideas here. You and I will just maybe touch on 3 or 4 that we're thinking about each coming up for future podcasts or broadcasts, however people are viewing these or listening.
Right, and I'd like to real quick, and I know that, and I think we're doing okay with time. I'd like to talk for just a second about some of my motivation for doing the podcast,
Okay.
because there is motivation there, and I think number one is I think there is a huge advantage in having an educated consumer
I agree.
before they ever walk through my door. We don't have the best retention rate with, or I should say conversion rate,
Okay.
from people who just say, hey, James, I want you to be my accountant, to people who actually mean it when they say, hey, James, I want you to be my accountant, or hey, I want to use J.H. Johnson and Associates, because Nadine Torgerson, my business partner here, she kind of works on the same format. It's not assumed she'll be in the office at any time. It's not always assumed you can just fax something over and immediately handle it, which I don't think any accountant does that anymore. But the old-fashioned of dropping off, get your taxes done here kind of thing is not in place with us. That's not necessarily how we operate. That is a component of our business retail tax. But we tend to work on a cloud-based kind of thing, where we're using different platforms to share information with people and to retrieve information with people that are encrypted, and we have to be super careful about that. But on a bigger level, the more educated the consumer is, the better off I am before they ever walk through the door, And so if I can just get out there and educate consumers, that's one. And then number two, I like to be able to talk about a certain topic with a client, and then I'd like to give them and say, hey, go listen to Jab Sessions, episode 9. That's when we cover revenue accounting software and your easiest way to invoice from the cloud. Or the easiest way to set up, whatever infrastructure for accounting that Bob may have in mind. Or this is where we cover data encryption. I think there's a huge advantage to you. You can send your client there and say it. Huge advantage to me. And I would be lying if I said that this wasn't, at least to some extent, a marketing opportunity for us.
Sure.
And then lastly, I am a mild narcissist who just likes to see myself on camera. So
yep, I understand.
all those are applicable in my situation. So.
And I agree with you from our standpoint.
You think I'm a narcissist?
I agree with that too. That's beside the point. But the thing I run into is, I think it's a good point by you. We often run into a customer who, as we're leaving the office, just a quick, hey, I got a quick question for you. And it's how do we make sure our Wi-Fi is secure? I mean, that specific hasn't happened, but
so let me ask you a question. Do you make money by answering that question? Or do you make
somewhat
money by...
loaded question.
It is a loaded question, and that's why I'm asking it.
The ultimate answer would be yes.
Okay, because you've proven your skill and you went and installed the Wi-Fi. But
the majority of those questions come to me in a off-the-clock mode, I would think.
Well, I'm hoping that Jab Sessions can be your off-the-clock mode.
I agree. That's exactly it.
You can kind of go and say, hey, episode 12, that was Wi-Fi.
Yes.
And how we handle that.
It's exactly right, because that's what we do. That's what we run into. And the other thing is, there's an assumption. This comes back to your point about the educated consumer. There's an assumption when someone says quick question, and I don't want to come off.
They think it's a quick question.
Well, that's the thing, and I don't want to come off as I don't want to answer that question. Or you're wrong. It's not a quick question, but they are normally wrong.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
For you may get, and I'm not saying we don't get them. You may get the, hey, is Form XYZ due on November 1st? I don't think that exists, but the point is...
no. In fact, there's no forms due on November 1st.
Or XYZ.
So if I actually got that question, I would say, first of all, there's no such thing as a Form XYZ.
Okay.
Second of all, November 1st is not a deadline for the IRS.
Correct.
So you actually hit square in between 1040 and your 990 deadlines or when you're extended 1040 and your 990 deadlines for a 630 year end.
Sure.
Which was way more technical than what you need to know. But the point is, I can't answer that question fairly briefly. Now, do I get questions about what's the law for revenue recognition on a contractor that works on a cost of completion basis? Now, no, I can't just tell you, oh, well, here's a date. It's not like that. There's a huge calculation that goes into that.
Exactly.
That I would have to explain, and secondary to that, if I explain it to you, then you could probably pass the CPA exam.
Sure.
Because that's very complicated.
And I think that's important too. Is the the topics that we bring up, there are some things that I'm interested in as far as how it impacts my business.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is what I run into, because I do get accounting-based questions. People may not realize it, and I know you get IT-based for two reasons. Number one, you carry credibility from an IT standpoint.
Here and there.
Here and there.
Yeah.
And number two, a lot of IT, and maybe that's something we do down the road, is even bring somebody legal in on this.
Yeah,
as well.
I think that would be a great idea. In fact, and when I view the format of this, I think that the format will generally be you and I as the core, but I like the idea of bringing other people in. I like the idea of bringing other accountants in, believe it or not. I like the idea, and if you're open, I think you should be open to bringing other IT people in that may see things differently.
No question about it.
And and not just that, but you also talked about the legal aspect. I'm totally game for bringing anyone in that can help us out in that world, because that's a world that I don't live in, and I think same way with you.
But you're certainly touches on that industry, and I would say you probably get questions that sound like accounting questions, but are legal questions. Would you not agree?
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of lawyers that get accounting questions.
Sure, they do.
So it kind of goes both ways with that.
Well, and you even talked about, and this could be, and you don't have this on the list we talked about up front, but starting out a new business.
Right.
Just, honestly, that in itself, because I guarantee, and this is something where I really hope we really benefit people, is we maybe give some comfort to somebody who wants to start out a new business, but they're just scared to. Maybe one of the podcasts that we discussed, you say, here's what's involved.
Right.
Because do I have to have a lawyer? What kind of a lawyer? Do I have to have an accountant? Do I have to have an IT person? Because that 15 years ago, that would not have been asked. I think now it's a legitimate question.
I think now, I can't think of a single business model that can be started and you can be competitive in without some sort of IT support, even if it's just an IT guy setting up a laptop for you. I just can't see it. And there's so much in your world when people say IT. That's such a huge topic, because so many people will say IT and when they actually mean web design. And some guys will say web design when they actually mean programmer.
Yes.
Some people will say programmer when they mean IT guy. So I think that all those aspects, I would love to get a web design guy in here. I would love to get a programmer in here. I would love to get all that stuff in here.
Yes.
But I don't think the people in general understand that those are separate disciplines, at least not the people that I encounter on a day-to-day basis.
And I think we have to also be careful not to let ourselves get frustrated by those questions, because the people just simply don't know.
Right.
And we ought to almost embrace it that they're willing to ask, because a lot of people are holding that stuff in.
Right.
Because I've had meetings, I want to talk about my IT, and we sit down, and really it's about marketing of a website, for example.
Absolutely.
And so that even comes into it as well. Because correct me if I'm wrong, marketing is certainly something you analyze with people, and whether it be budgeting or planning. I'm not saying you are in marketing, but you are.
Well, here's the question I get all the time, because people assume you're a founder, you're a co-founder of a CPA firm. CPA firm's a business, and I do bill myself as a entrepreneur who happens to be an accountant. And I view myself, and when I talk about how we run our business, I think in terms of we're an accounting firm that's ran like an internet startup. Am I allowed to say that?
I guess that does send chills down certain
people.
That has a negative connotation,
does have a negative
even though it
connotation.
isn't.
And and we live in a world where Mark Zuckerberg rung the opening bell on a T-shirt a few years ago, and it's just gone downhill from there as far as business structure and the way that we do business and the way that we all interact with each other. I've heard another term that they use for guys like me. They call it CPA 2.0.
Okay, right.
CPA 1.0 is the guy with in the suit that you're bringing shoe boxes full of receipts in, and the guy adds them up, does his magic on an adding machine, hands them back to you, and bills you $1,000 for it.
Yeah.
And I'm CPA 2.0. I say email me a link to your books, and I'll get on it, and a day later I send you a bill for $1,000 because I looked over your book and filed your return.
Right.
And somewhere along the line, I probably made a few suggestions about the way that you're recording, booking, or keeping track of your data. So it's a different way of doing business, and it's definitely the way that I see myself operating. It's so intertwined with IT, you just can't separate the two.
Yep.
It's kind of what it is. So and, you know, we've kind of heard, is there some specific topics that you want to just kind of throw out there that you think we'll be covering in future sessions?
Sure, and you and I have talked about this for several months now, and there's a list a mile long. Let's just give a couple examples.
Right. And this has been super slow, just so our listeners know. This has been super slow to develop. So I'm hoping that we have some fairly well-developed thoughts for you here, because we have taken our time putting together what we wanted the podcast to be. Now, obviously, we're using pretty raw technology to push this thing out there, but that's really by intention that we're just not ready to, and in fact, we're just trying to be cool and fun, and like all the other cool kids that are doing these raw podcasts and Google Hangouts.
Sure, so. And hopefully we'll be doing it at a more world-class level. That's what I like.
World-class. Yeah, use that word.
I love it.
Yeah, you're definitely world-class.
So, some specifics for me from an IT standpoint. And they kind of spin off of questions you've asked me, policies and procedures. Okay, what do we mean by that? And a number of our customers, I think we would be doing them a disservice if we didn't help them in these avenues.
How many new clients do you engage in business that have a standing policy and procedures document in place?
Wow, that's a really good question. Hey, I don't know a percentage, James, but I'm going to go lower. I would say
a third. A quarter? A fifth?
Maybe the quarter to a fifth, and
yeah. So that's a good. Yeah,
I probably should be able to give you a better answer to that.
Well, why would you track that? You just go in and put a policy and procedure. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's not. I don't track statistics as to how many people have internal control documents in place. I just write it in as part of the engagement and move on.
Well, so what do we mean by these policies and procedures from a IT standpoint? Equipment. When someone comes in and uses equipment, this day and age, I don't know if you've ever run into this or not, but some people use their devices for business and personal, James. Can you believe that?
No.
And it used to be, I think it was a separation. You cannot use this for this. You can use it for this. But now, it almost behooves the businesses to allow people. Not so much, number one, we could get into lets them relax and be themselves. I mean, yes, that may be the case, but more from
I love to relax and be myself.
From a marketing standpoint, it can help when you get people on board, when you get people comfortable with working with the technology. And you also have to get people trained, like we focus on, train and educate on how to use the stuff.
So the buzzword I keep hearing is bring your own device.
Yep.
BYOD.
Yes.
Companies with BYOD policies. So
yes.
That's probably a lot of fun, is helping people develop BYOD policies. And maybe, who knows, maybe we'll have a show with the show notes will have a free BYOD policy in there. You can kind of hang on to. That's the kind of stuff I'd like to do for our listeners.
Sure. Well, so we got that. We have internet usage policies. Now, everybody should have those in place, but this can become a problem too. I've got customers, and I run into this specific situation where, in order to effectively have a good internet policy, it locks down and limits people, and I've had people say it goes against our corporate culture.
Yeah.
And, boy, I could certainly argue either side of that.
I could too, and I've got clients. I spend the vast majority of my time at clients' offices or working directly with clients, not inside this office. This office, I guess, is now a podcast studio instead of an accounting office. Yes. Anyway, but
I'm saying IT. I'm just taking over.
Yeah. But I work with tons of not tons, but I do work with clients that some have a wide open IT policy, some don't have an IT policy, and some have a very closed IT policy. And I'm like you. I can see either, but I think that there's so much to be said about the organization themselves that dictates the IT policy.
I agree.
And some just have that trust in their employees, others don't. Now,
right.
Anyway.
Well, and I can tell you, and again, our point isn't to dive into this topic, but I do know that there are customers that spend a lot of money with us as a result of lack of those policies.
Right.
There's no question about that. And certainly, yeah, we bill, we make money off of fixing those problems, but that's not what I want to do, James. We don't want to be the place that repairs the problems, that fixes, that removes the viruses, that clears up the improper backlog of data that they should.
Right.
That's not what we want to do.
And that's a general thought. That's
Sure.
not just about policy
Sure
and procedure. That could be client server network, or that could be
Yes.
your cloud infrastructure. That
Exactly.
could be anything. I think would apply to that.
So what are some others from a technology standpoint? Again, cloud computing. That can branch into so many different directions, which, again, cloud accounting, you mentioned that before,
Right,
so we can
right.
tie
Yeah, I
into
made
that
the
as
comment
well.
earlier. I don't know if it was on air or it was before, but you never hear people talk about cloud engineering.
True.
And maybe it's out there, but it's certainly not buzzworthy, and they're certainly not running ads on TV like what QuickBooks Online are and what Xero.com is.
And that's interesting that you say that, the buzzword stuff. Our industries are full of that, and I think that could be something that's even one of our topics, maybe clearing up the buzzword monster that's created out
absolutely.
there. And then, of course, we talk about the policies and procedures, which, again, is 15 different sub-podcasts can come from that. And that's where I think you can help me or help us, help others, is implementation of that stuff, because from protecting people when it comes from accounting side, from standpoint, we can protect people from IT as well.
Right.
And that goes along with the next one I was thinking about, is devices.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are sitting here, and within just a short reach here, well, I don't know, we got 15 different devices.
We're going to get nasty with this, aren't we? I've got a phone, I've got a tablet, you've got a phone, you've got a tablet, there's a computer here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's in this room. And truthfully, what's funny is when I think of and this all, this comes back to how I work or how you work. You know, some people work, and my favorite is the Steve Jobs quote that computers are like trucks. In the early agriculture economy of the United States, everyone drove a truck because they were hauling back and forth going into town. But as people started to settle in the suburbs and some of the urban centers before that, they started buying cars. Well, we still have trucks, don't we?
Yep.
We still sell trucks on the car lot? Right. And that was Steve Jobs' point. Laptops are trucks. Now we also have cars available. Not everyone needs a truck. Some people only need a tablet.
Yep.
And I think that's a huge challenge for your industry because people don't yet know how to use tablets. And
Very true.
that's offensive. I know that everyone get offended. That's fine. Be offended.
But it's
hang
true.
tight with us. We don't know how to use tablets. I'm using a tablet right now to supplement my computer and my laptop. I've got a laptop with a solid-state drive, and there's absolutely nothing that my laptop will do that my computer won't do. It's lighter and it's easier to carry, and it's so much more fun to watch YouTube videos on.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's...
Have you seen the video of the cat doing chopsticks with chopsticks on the piano?
No, really?
Okay, yeah, no, it was in the movie. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, and that's a good point. And the other thing is, this technology stuff creates chaos, but it can also add to a little bit of fun to the work environment too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I talk to people. It's like, it used to be, okay, I've started a new job. Okay, do you get benefits? Yes. What are your benefits? I have this package, healthcare, I have this vacation, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's like, I might get a wireless phone, I get a tablet. That's a factor, which also, which, my goodness, does that create a bunch of questions from an accounting standpoint. I could go on and on as far as, hey, how's this work? How's that? And we're going to touch on these topics. So I think that's what excites me about this. So there's some of the things from an IT standpoint. You've got a number of ones you probably topics.
Yeah, and I'm just going to touch them real quick. What we're not going to talk as much about, we're probably not going to dive into the ins and outs of a Schedule C, and we may not dive into complicated issues about audits or how to react if you receive a notice of examination. All those things are important, and I'll totally handle those for you, and maybe there will be a podcast episode on those, but that certainly doesn't dive into the IT world. The things that I'm most interested in would be talking about, I'd like to do like some app roundups. What are the best apps to use for accounting? What's the best way to live in a hybrid world where you have a server, yet you also have documents floating around out in the web? Now that's very much accounting related, because I can guarantee you a lot of those documents are accounting, and I think there's going to be more and more, before people move to full cloud storage, I think you're going to have people who are storing documents in the cloud and using client-server-based accounting programs. They're going to have people using QuickBooks Online or Xero.com or Wave.com or any of these other accounting sites. And
I would say there's...
And still storing documents on a server.
Sure, and I'll even open up the door. This day and age, you ask anybody, do you use accounting? So, well, I use QuickBooks. Almost like that's all there is.
Yeah.
And this isn't pro or anti QuickBooks. It's just that's what people think.
Yeah, we're pro advisors, and there's some people that I'm like, yeah, QuickBooks is right for you. QuickBooks Online's come a long way in the last year or two, so I'm a lot more on board with it than what I have been in the past.
Right.
But yeah, I think you're right. People really view it as, well, QuickBooks is all there is out there, and that's slowly going away to some of these other online platforms. And I'm going to throw one at you.
Okay.
This is, hold still.
I'm ready.
What if somebody doesn't do all their accounting in one software?
I can't fathom the possibility, James.
Can you imagine that I have clients who invoice from one software that keeps their time, and then keeps their expenses in another software that allows them to image their receipts?
You make a great point here, James, and I think this is important. This is what I want us to really get out of this, is because there are times, correct me if I'm wrong, where it is best to only be in one account.
Right.
Software, and there's times where it's not best. And we're not affiliated. I mean, Grant, you're a QuickBooks.
Yeah, I'm a QuickBooks Pro advisor. I'm a Xero partner. They call that a Xero partner.
Right.
I've been in and out of the Sage program. I'm addicted to various different softwares. I love Apple, but I can't get away from Microsoft.
Sure.
But anyway, yeah, no, we're absolutely not affiliated.
And that will help, so that we can help
until
people
we get
decisions.
Advertisements. Whenever we're paid advertising,
things are going to change. Yeah,
things change. No, just kidding. Yeah, that's down the road.
Sure. So what else you got? You've got
yeah, that's really the big one. And these all kind of interconnect, but it is just online accounting, and then just really talk about leveraging IT for record keeping in general.
Right.
And that's not just your numbers, that's your documentation for your numbers and how to run your business. And I want to do app roundups. I really envision this to a large extent to be a source of business owners to make their lives easier.
I love that idea.
I
think that in
I hate to use the term life hacking because we said no buzzwords earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, business hacking. And I know business hacking is like Edward Snowden. But you know what I'm getting.
Sure,
right?
do.
So
I think that's the expectations. That's kind of our goal here. We really think Jab sessions, James and Bob sessions.
Right.
That's what we're doing here. We're looking to help the business owner, help people from just an accounting and an IT standpoint. And we're going to be right here for you. We're going to try to do this in a consistent pattern, maybe weekly or bi-weekly, James.
Right.
And then what else?
Hey, I think this is pretty well got it for our intro. Because we've held these guys a few minutes over. We said 30 minutes. We've probably done, like 35 or something.
Sure.
But guys, we appreciate you listening to us, and we really hope you get a lot out of it. And if you have any questions for me, hit us up on jcpa.com. Bob, is there somewhere they can go to find you?
They can. They can go to www.workintandem.com, WORKIN, and the word tandem, TANDEM.com. You can email me directly, bob@workintandem.com, and we can, if you have some suggested topics that you want covered, or if there's any questions you have that you want us to really tackle, and we can make things easier for you. That's our goal.
There we go. So, all right, guys, thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you hopefully next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.